We just moved my daughter into college for her first year, and it got us reminiscing back over the last 18, almost 19 years of her life. And I remember the night she was born, I had never changed a diaper before in my life up until that point. And then Mallory arrives, and the delivery was pretty rough, and so Megan is not in any shape to really help with her at first. And so everything is on me, and I am changing a diaper for the very first time. And she was, itty bitty and dealing with all that stuff, and I didn't know what I was doing, and she didn't know what she was doing, and it got kind of messy, but in the end, we were able to get it done. But I learned some really valuable lessons in the midst of all the squirming and the smells and the sights that go along with that. Change is always hard. And so I have to ask you a question, because I think it's true of most of us. Do you have something in your life you wish was different? Is there something that you wish would change? We're at the start of a new school year for most people in the country and in the area, and that's usually an unofficial New Year's where we look at starting routines again and getting things in order and setting goals where we want new experiences, new routines, new outcomes. We want change. And the top 5 things we tend to want change in are our health, whether it's getting on a diet or losing weight or eating healthier. We want to fix our money, whether it's getting out of debt or saving for a trip. We want to fix our relationships, both with our kids and with our spouses, and maybe find some friends. We want hobbies. What are we going to do with our time? And we have goals for our career. And we want something to change in all of those areas, but it's hard to actually do anything besides just wanting it to change. In fact, only 30% of people will even reach the commitment level needed to voice that change in the form of like a resolution or a goal. Because if we're going to actually change, we know the difficulty level. We know the risk of failure. We know the effort that's going to be involved. And so while we want something to change, sometimes desperately, we don't always know how to go about making it happen. We don't always know if we can make it happen. And so I have good news for people today that are in a place where they want to see something change. Change is hard, but with God, change is possible. So if you want to change one thing in your life, with God's help, it's possible. And if you're in a place where you need to change everything, because life is just rough and you feel beat up and you're discouraged and you don't have a lot of hope anymore, well then, even that, there's hope for if God is involved. Jesus reveals this right at the beginning of his ministry in Mark chapter 1. Let me read it, the first part for you. It says, "As Jesus walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen." Now what this scene is really saying is that this is about the most ordinary day in that area that you could possibly think of. This isn't the kind of setup to a story that makes you think something epic is going to happen. I mean, it is not like the iconic shot in Star Wars A New Hope, where you see the little Corellian Corvette flying and you're like, wow, that's big. And then all of a sudden, this shadow comes and fills the screen as this giant, massive Star Destroyer shooting laser beams flies over your head and fills up the entire screen and lets you know that something big, something extraordinary is about to happen. This is the story set up with all kinds of ordinary. Fishing seems like a fun pastime for us, but it was the most common employment of somebody on the Sea of Galilee at the time that Jesus is here. It is super common. In fact, the historian Josephus would tell us there were probably at least 240 fishing boats a day on that lake. And Peter and Andrew are 2 ordinary guys. Simon, Peter, you get it? Yeah. They are ordinary men doing an ordinary job. There was nothing special about them. They did not have money. They did not have prestige. They did not have an education. They were just there fishing like they did every other day besides the Sabbath. It was the most ordinary setting it could be. And then Jesus comes into this ordinary place, and he adds something extraordinary to what's going on. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." And at once they left their nets and followed him. Follow me. This is the first of 21 times in the Gospels that Jesus makes that invitation. It's a very important invitation that he keeps offering up over and over again, because it's an invitation to stop following whatever it is you have been following and change and follow Jesus instead. And he does this again with James and John right after this invitation. He says, when he'd gone a little farther, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John in a boat preparing their nets. Without delay, he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired men and followed Jesus. Their response to Jesus, Simon Peter's, Andrew's, James, and John's, their response to this invitation matters. It says that they at once followed him. This at once can be translated immediately, without hesitation. And this isn't an automatic response to Jesus. Jesus' invitation to follow him gets turned down a lot. In fact, it's probably been turned down a lot by you and by me in our lives too. One of the most famous times it gets turned down is the rich young ruler who comes to Jesus wanting to have his life change, seeking what is best. And he's lived a good life so far. He hasn't done anything outwardly wrong. He's followed the law. He's been able to acquire wealth. He looks like he is the poster child for everything that's good and right. And then Jesus tells him, sell all that you have, give it to the poor, and then come and follow me. That's all you lack to have everything that you say you want. So stop following money, stop following power, stop following status and prestige and all these things that you have, and instead follow me. And because the man thought all of the things that he had were too comfortable to give up, he couldn't do it. And he went away sad. Contrast that with what these four men who were fishing did, because they basically had to do the same thing. They didn't sell their boats and their nets. They might not even have been theirs to sell, but instead they left their job, they left part of their family, they left what was familiar and comfortable, and they left all of that behind to immediately get up and follow this Jesus who had called them and invited them to follow him. Why? Why would they do something like that? My dad was a meteorologist for the National Weather Service for basically his whole career, and he rose up pretty well through the ranks. He was good at his job, and he had reached a point where he was kind of overseeing the eastern field, as it was called. And that was there. We lived in Long Island at the time, and there was just, I know because I overheard this, I was starting to get to the age where I was paying attention to conversations, that there was a lot of conflict, there was a lot of stress. He was out of what he enjoyed about the job, and there was some butting of heads that was taking place at that level. And he needed change. He wanted change, but it would have been hard to make a change, because hard would have meant moving again pretty quickly. Hard would have meant taking a step back down the ladder, not one step, but probably 2 or 3 steps, and knowing that you would never reach up to the spot that you were leaving behind before. And it made a huge impression on me when my dad decided that the change was worth it. We ended up moving to Northern Virginia pretty quickly afterwards. I learned that when you believe something is better, we usually will do that thing. The way one of my professors put it is that when the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, that's when change will happen. You see, Jesus is calling you and I to follow him. But we'll only get up and follow like these four men did if we truly believe that what he is offering is better. And so with following Jesus, this call to have purpose, to be fishers of men, to know what it's like to have his peace, to have him closer than a brother, to have transformation from the inside out, to have forgiveness of sins and life everlasting, which are all the things that aren't spoken here but come along with following Christ. If all of that is better than where you are right now, then we need to get started on doing something about it and following him. So what is he speaking to you? Probably louder than audible, to come and follow him in. What is he asking of you? If you hear and you really believe that what he offers is better than where you are, then it is time to move at once. Because often delayed obedience is really disobedience. So what do you at once do? For Peter and Andrew and James and John, they literally had to put down the nets. In other words, they literally had to take what was in their hands that was holding them back from following God, and they had to place it down and drop it. So what is it that is holding you back? Is there a relationship that you're in that you know if you do what God's asking of you, this person's not going to be very happy about it? Maybe they might not be in it anymore. Is there a coping mechanism or a sin or an addiction that you just don't know what your life would be like without it? Are you scared of the unknown? Are you scared of what will happen to your finances or to your future? Are you worried that people might get to see who you really are? What is it that's holding you back? For me, I remember one time, I've told the story before, there was an election years ago. It was a rainy day, and there were some of the Democratic campaigners out at the polling place, and they were just getting drenched and soaked, and nobody in our area was going over to see them. And they seemed very isolated and alone, and God was like, you should go and get them a coffee and an umbrella if you can. And I was like, God, maybe I've got plans, I've got things I need to do, I've got my day lined out, I don't know if I have time to come and do this. And so my plans got in the way of following Jesus that day. But I was also, if I'm honest, concerned about what the opinions of other people might be if they saw me talking to those people. And so that got in the way of following Jesus that day too. What is it that you're holding on to that is getting in the way of following him? And the other thing we have to realize that at once isn't a finish line either. None of these men that day suddenly became super disciples. You keep reading, you'll see how God worked in their lives to keep changing them and transforming them and having them continue on this journey with Jesus. When I was in 10th grade, I got talked into wrestling with my saxophone buddy. And I went to the interest meeting, and I left there, and when I left the interest meeting, I was on the squad, but it wasn't really making me a wrestler yet just because I said yes to the interest meeting or said yes to joining the team. I had to keep coming back. There was preseason conditioning where we're running the stairs in the school and going down to the weight room and learning what it feels like to get hit by people who are much stronger than you. I had to go to practice. We started a month before the first meet, and we practiced 2.5 hours a day, and it was brutal. I had to work to make weight. I had to go to the meets and compete. One year I was competing against people that weighed 80 pounds or more than me. And it was all those things together that made me into a wrestler in high school. Not just the one-time decision. You see, it was a one-time decision with a daily commitment. And that's how change comes when we follow Jesus. It is a one-time commitment Our one-time decision followed up by these daily commitments to keep following him at once, over and over again each day. And our willingness to change something, like who we're following, lets Jesus change everything. You see, it was more about these fishermen changing careers. It was about them reorienting their whole life around Christ. So how their family was going to work, where they were going to live, how they were going to travel changed. The ways that they would treat Jews and non-Jews, citizens and non-citizens changed because of Jesus. How they would handle their money or their bodies was different because they were oriented around Christ. What they valued, the purpose of their life, the things they pursued, all were different because Jesus became the center. It's described as dying to yourself. Because the truth is, when we're really honest, most of what we follow is really just an extension of us if it isn't Christ. Follow your heart and your dreams. Have it your way. Protect yourself. When you put yourself first, pretty much any blank first statement is really a me first statement, if we're honest. And instead of putting yourself first, instead of following your own desires, your own goals, your own heart, Jesus said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me. Luke 9:23. We have to be willing to die to ourselves that we can follow Christ. But really, that's only part of the story. Baptism tells the whole story. You see, when we get baptized, we go down into the water, symbolizing this death to ourselves. But we don't stay there. We come back up, and having lost our life, we then receive a new life found in Christ. We receive his life. And he changes us from the inside out. You see, that's the key here. Jesus is the one who changes us when we follow him. It wasn't, Peter and Andrew, if you try really hard and you make all the right decisions and you never make a mistake, then I will make you fish for people. It was, I will make you fishers of men. It doesn't matter if you're at a point in your life where you've tried all kinds of things and they haven't worked. The tense of the verbs here is that Jesus makes these things happen as an ongoing action. In other words, I will make and I will continue to make you if you will just follow me now and continue to follow me. And so the message is, Jesus is not done with you yet. He is still working in you. He is still working through you. And so whether you are here today and you want to change one thing or you need to change everything, God is not done. And with Jesus, it is possible to see that change happen if you are ready to accept the invitation to follow him. If you've ever been out on a river on a really hot day, you can see the current going by and you'd be like, man, it would be so fun to jump in and to cool off and just be carried by the current as you relax out on the water. But it's not enough just to see the current and know it's there. You have to jump in order to experience it, to enjoy it, and to be moved somewhere else. And Jesus isn't going to come up behind you and push you in like your brother or sister may have done. And so if you really want to change something, or if you really need to change everything, I'm here to tell you that Jesus is better than where you are right now. And you can trust him enough to at once jump in and let him move you. Let him change you into who you always were meant to be. God, I pray that you would help us to have the the kind of faith that says yes right away when you call to us. Instead of worrying about all the ways that it could go wrong, help us to know that with you it will go right. And it will be better than where we were when we follow you. Not that there won't be some ups and downs along the way, but that you have promised that you will work out all things for good of those who love you, who are called according to your purposes. So help us to be your disciples who will deny ourselves and take up our cross daily and follow you in whatever you might be calling us to do. And for those that are feeling a call to come and get to know you for the very first time, or to come back to you after having walked away, Lord, I pray that they would know that you love them. And because you love them, you are willing to give your life for them. That for the joy of them joining back into the family of God, you were willing to let your life be given on a cross. But you didn't stay there, but rose again from the dead, conquering death and having the ability to forgive each and every and any sin that we may possibly have that could keep us from coming to you. And so, Lord, if we need to, we pray that you would forgive us. May we accept what you have already offered. And may you come in, and as we follow you, may you change us. May we be able to make this decision over and over again, each day, each minute, each second, that you may make us who you've called us to be, and we may experience the new life that is found in you. Amen.